Welcome back to the It's Too Late show. I'm your host, Kahlua Lua, and let's welcome our guest for tonight. You know him from the Spike Feeders, the Better Know a Combo series, a former CAG member, and now a member of the Rules Committee. He's more maple than man. It's Jim LaPage. Thanks for joining us, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me.
When the arms race started in my local playgroup, and I was transitioning from EDH to CEDH, the content that I watched was the Spike Feeders, the Lab Maniacs, the Mystic Remoras. Can you tell us how you got into playing CEDH and how the Spike Feeders came to be?
Yeah, I had no idea you were a boomer, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly the way that we started playing CDH is Bill from our group, my brother, started powering up his decks. We were just playing, I forget what we were playing. I think I was playing Aurelia the War Leader. Elliot was playing, I forget what he was playing. Bill was playing Obsidat of the Ghost Council.
Mhm.
And Jerry was playing Ural the Miststalker. And Bill started powering up, and eventually he found the CDH subreddit and actually came across Cobblepot's Boonweaver list. And I know that this list is responsible for getting so many people into CDH.
Yeah.
But he built it card for card. And we had a lot of trouble keeping up, but we were up to the challenge. So we just kind of kept powering up. That's when I built my original Nin list that I played really early on our channel. And yeah, we loved it. It was just kind of a great way to play Magic. And then the reason why we started the Spike Beaters was because we didn't really see a whole lot of people playing Magic the way that we played. A lot of the EDH content at the time, it was like the Command Zone and maybe like 3 or 4 other channels. Because this was 4 years ago. And there were essentially no CEDH channels. We started right around when the Lab Maniacs started taking a big, long break. So it was like us and Team Turn 3, and Playing with Power came a couple months after we did. But a lot of people have kind of referred to that as the period where people realized that anybody can do it. And then there was just this huge explosion of CDH content in the first 18 months that we were doing YouTube. Yeah, and it was fun. We not exaggerating when I say we bought a camcorder and we taped it to a light fixture in my dining room with masking tape. That was how we started.
Yeah. I saw the picture of you nailing the camera into the ceiling.
Yeah.
One of the decks that you're kind of known for is Bears and Cars. In your journey through EDH and CEDH, what have been some of your favorite decks?
Ooh, I'm on a really big Minsk Hulk kick right now. I think by the time this comes out, I will have been on Shuffle Up and playing that deck. And it rules. It's everything that I want to do playing Magic. Yeah, it's sweet. It's fast. It's yeah, it does what I want to do. I'm also playing a lot of Urza lately.
Okay, yeah.
Which I know Urza is probably outclassed by a few different more recent things, but I really like the way that deck plays. In the past, I played Bears and Cars. It was a little bit of a meme to start off with. It was kind of more of a thought experiment of what could there be a CDH deck that just won with combat damage, fair combat damage, no consult, no at the time Blood Pod was playing Kiki Jiki and all that kind of stuff. It could win with combat damage, but that wasn't really the point. But that was kind of the idea, was could we take more of a death and taxes approach to deck building as opposed to race to combo or mid-range combo or control combo. So I knew that it wasn't really a great deck starting out. But some people like it. I don't know. It's better than it should be, I think. It's not as good as it could be, but it's better than it should be. We'll put it that way. Yeah, aside from that, I think the last deck that I really, really loved playing was when Paradox Engine was legal.
Okay.
And I just really like playing with Paradox Engine. I play Paradox Academy and Canadian Highlander. And yeah, I don't know. That card rules.
I remember when COVID hit and playing moved online, you had a camera setup video that was pretty popular. How did COVID affect your content and your channel?
Oh, it screwed us. We kind of did a brief foray into webcam magic. We bought a bunch of webcams, overpriced webcams at the beginning of the pandemic. We bought 7 of them.
Yeah.
And
hard to find.
We tried it for a little bit, and I just didn't really like it. It wasn't the product that I wanted to do. One thing that I tell people quite a bit is when we first started, we had face cams, and that was aside from the Command Zone and like Commander Versus and like the big three or whatever, face cams weren't really a popular thing when we first started out. But I felt it was really important because we were trying to emphasize the sociality and the casualness, like not casual in deck building or casual in gameplay, but the casualness in interpersonal interaction in our gameplay. We wanted to show people that didn't go away just because you were playing powerful cards or expensive decks or whatever, right? Because that was kind of the attitude at the time. And we found that we couldn't really showcase that very well playing webcam Magic, even with face cams on webcam. It just like wasn't the product that I wanted to make. So we did a few episodes of that and then we kind of dropped it. But then our views just tanked. People came to us for gameplay and we stopped doing gameplay for about 9 months while I couldn't have people over in my house. And honestly, that is a hole that we're just now starting to dig ourselves out of since about June of this year. But yeah, we're back to weekly gameplay. It's kind of awesome. We're doing in-studio gameplay every other week, and then on the off weeks, we're releasing game summaries. I started doing those. They're very like Playing with Power-esque. They're narrated gameplay summaries.
Okay.
And I started doing those with the MLC games over the summer because I figured, you know what? I'm playing these games. We might as well release them on the channel. And the reception has been pretty good. So we kind of kept it up, and now we're doing those games in the off weeks with patrons instead of the MLC. Speaking
of the MLC, how did your run go? What decks did you draft, and what was your record?
Honestly, it was really good. I did better than I expected. I went in there and I was like, you know what? If I end up with a 25% win rate, I'll be ecstatic about MLC. Right? But I drafted. I was at Olivia Gobert Hicks's house in LA when the draft happened, and they were having a party. So I had to leave the party. I was in the middle of a game. And the draft started and Callahan was pinging me. They were like, where are you? Where are you? And I'm like, I'll be right there. And I like locked myself in a bedroom and I was doing the whole thing on my phone. And I was writing my picks in a textbook that I had brought with me because I also had to study for an exam while I was in LA. And I was writing my picks. I got none of my picks. Islane scooped Minsk from me the pick before mine in the first round. And I was like, I wasn't prepared for this. But I ended up with Brea as a random first pick.
Okay.
Cole Clampstorm, which is a cool deck. Greasefang Vehicles. It's like Orzhov Bears and Cars, basically.
Yeah, I think I saw you play that one.
Yeah, and it's like similarly not good. I know Callahan loves it. It's not a good deck. But and then the last one I had was Urza, Polykraken.
Nice.
Yeah, so I picked up wins with Clampstorm and Polykraken, which was pretty good. Or no, sorry, 2-6-0, because we didn't actually end up playing our last two games because of scheduling conflicts. So we only played 8 games out of the 10. Which is kind of unfortunate, but yeah. So I went to 2-6-0, which is exactly 25%. Respectable.
Do you remember who else was in your conference and who went on to the finals?
Oh, I'd have to look it up. It was Michael Levine, Timmy.
You weren't in the group with Into the North guys, were you?
Oh no, that was a meat grinder of a division. That is there are several steps above where I'm at, so no.
Yeah. In January of 2019, the Rules Committee formed the Commander Advisory Group, which was originally 6 members, and then in 2021 they added another 4 members, yourself included. Can you tell us what it was like to be selected for that, and what is the purpose of the CAG?
Sure. It's been kind of wild. I actually only met the members of the Rules Committee in 2019. It was probably, I want to say maybe 6 months before the CAG was created. That was the first time that I had ever talked to Sheldon. And it was because I had just tweeted at him on Twitter. It was about when they revised the philosophy document. They were asking for feedback, and I said, you know what, this is what I think about it. I think that it kind of slants against CDH players, and I kind of resent it. It feels like you're taking a shot at us, and I don't like it. And he reached out to me and said, let's talk about this. Like, where are you reading these things? Where are you seeing these things? And Sheldon and I had I shouldn't even say we had a long talk, because it was an ongoing talk over the course of about a year. We talked about Flash. We talked about like messaging, like the tone of announcements, tone of messages, and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you follow the rules committee rhetoric over the course of the 3 years since 2019, it's softened quite a bit towards more competitive play styles. There's still like a little bit there, and I think that's because there are parts of CEDH that are maybe not irreconcilable with the greater format, but definitely pulling in a different direction, I think is the way that I would put it. And I don't think that that's necessarily bad, but it's not something that they're used to. So it's been a bit of an evolution over the last 3 years. But yeah, we had actually talked about me potentially joining the CAG. It was probably shortly after Flash got banned. So that was that in 2019? Oh, testing my memory now. The last 3 years are kind of a blur, but
the dark times.
Yeah, exactly. But it was probably shortly after Flash got banned. We had been talking quite a bit, and he kind of felt me out on my interest in joining. And I said, yeah, I think that that's fine. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the CAG is more of a formalization of the people that the rules committee is already talking to about the format on a regular basis. It's not necessarily like, I think that there's an amount of recognition that comes from being added to the CAG, but I don't think that necessarily, like the official title of being on the CAG necessarily changes like how often or the quality of the interactions between a person and the rules committee. Mm-hmm. So like I could rattle off half a dozen people that I talk to about the format on a regular basis. Those are people that have every bit of as much influence as the CAG does. The only difference is they're not in our quarterly meetings, Mm-hmm. So, I don't think that my relationship to the rules committee really changed being added to the CAG, but it's definitely changed. Like I get a lot more DMs now from people that want to talk about stuff about the format. And I think that's what's changed, is I'm sort of connected to the community in a different way because I'm an official person that they can talk to, that they know, like that is not just empty complaining on the internet. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really what changed when I joined the CAG, and to the same degree as joining the rules committee. Kind of the same thing. It's more of a formalization than it is anything. Rules committee is a little bit different because there is more responsibility and more, there's like sort of responsibility in a couple different ways, in that we're providing active feedback to WotC about what's good for the format. I've now got an actual vote in what gets banned or how rules changes get made or how things get communicated out. So it's a lot more official, and it's got me a lot busier.
When you were on the CAG, was there ever a time where your input influenced the direction the rules committee was taking?
On the CAG? So I was on the CAG for about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily know, I don't think that there was any sort of adversarial, like, we want to do this, and then me putting my foot down and saying, no, you shouldn't do this, and then they go off in a different direction. There may have been more situations where they came to us honestly with an open question saying, well, how do you think we should handle this? And we provided our feedback. Okay. I will say that, like, before I joined the CAG, I was very involved in the discussion surrounding Flash. This is kind of like, I see people talk about this every once in a while, and it's kind of become like a bit of an apocryphal story in that you see people saying a lot of things that maybe necessarily never happened.
Okay.
But essentially what happened was Sheldon got feedback from a few different members of the CDH community. It was me, Shake and Shimmy, Lurker, Shaper, and Cobblepot. Cobblepot came in later. But rather than having individual conversations with us, they added us to a server and created a separate channel that was just for us to talk about CDH. And those discussions went on for probably a year, where we were just talking about the nature of CDH. A lot of the stuff that folks in the community now I think would kind of take for granted. And that's, a lot of concepts like, you can play CDH casually with your friends. Like, when I play with the Spike Feeders, nobody's playing the Pro Tour. Nobody's going to the Pro Tour in my basement,
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on the line. Like, the stakes have never been lower in my basement. Yeah, you can play these decks extremely casually. You can have fun with your friends playing CDH. It doesn't have to be like Pro Tour, hoodie up, sunglasses on, earbuds in, like focusing only on this. Yeah, and so it was kind of like busting down a lot of misconceptions about CDH and then talking about the impact, because the Flash problem was really created. It wasn't something that formed naturally. It was formed by the unbanning of
Doss's
Flash.
Oracle.
Well, yeah, it was kind of a couple things. It was that they unbanned Protean Hulk. That was the first thing. Then Vass's Oracle got printed very shortly after that. And it kind of combined the two best decks into the format into one deck that could not be beat. And so we talked a lot about that. It took probably about a year. And I would definitely say that without that, they wouldn't have taken any action on Flash. Yeah, so I think that's probably a good example. But although it is technically before I joined the CAG, it was kind of in the same capacity as providing advice to the Rules Committee.
And just last month, you joined the ranks of the Rules Committee. Sheldon alluded to there being an interview process to joining.
Sure.
So I thought we could role play. I'll be Sheldon, and you can be Jim, and I'll interview you for the RC position. Thanks for joining us today. Jim, if selected, what would you bring to the Rules Committee?
Ooh, this is a good question. Actually, this is something that wasn't asked. It was asked kind of in a different way. But yeah, I think that my particular style of communication is quite good. I think that my talents in taking highly technical concepts and breaking them down so that they're accessible to a large audience, I think that's one of my really strong points, one of my strengths. And I've got a lot of thoughts on how to structure the philosophy of the format. This is actually something that I haven't talked to a lot of people about, but I can share it all I want now. But it's something that I was previously working on with Sheldon, and now I'm kind of working on it, not on my own, but I'm more leading it than participating in it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm working on ways to structure the philosophy so that we can draw better lines between the actions that we take as the Rules Committee and the philosophy document. So right now, I kind of see the philosophy document as being kind of nebulous. You'll often hear people say it's a little bit more of an art than a science. I would like it to be a lot more like a science. That doesn't necessarily mean collecting data, but I do think that we can be a lot clearer on the actions that we take and then the purposes that those actions are supposed to have, like the reasons behind them. I think we can be clearer about that. So that's, I would say, the second thing. And then the third thing is I have a lot of thoughts on what we call untrusted play. I don't love the term untrusted play, but when I talk about untrusted play, we're talking mostly about LGS play, Command Fest play. I have a lot of thoughts on how we can potentially classify people when they go to those events very quickly and very easily, so that when they sit down at a table, they're set up to have better Rule Zero discussions or pregame discussions that'll be more productive and a little bit faster. Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for Command Fest and for LGS play, and I'm excited to implement those.
What would you say is your greatest weakness?
Oh, my greatest weakness. Well, I would say I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I would say I have told this to Sheldon before, is that I'm a recovering chronic internet arguer. I've spent a lot of time on Reddit in the past, and I think that there's a lot of arguments that happen online that are not necessarily productive or helpful, and it can be tough to not get sucked into those things. So I'm a lot better about this than I used to be, like a lot better about this than I used to be. But, there was a point in time in my life where I would just get sucked into these conversations and they would take days. And it's just like, man, that's not a good use of my time.
Stay off of Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, Reddit, even a lot of places in Discord. It's just like, what am I even doing here?
You sort of answered this already, but what is your vision for the future of EDH? What does that look like?
Ooh. So I think that this is a really good question. It's actually a question that I ask quite a bit as well, because I think that we don't have a great concept of this. So when we talk about like what the vision is for the future of the format, I think it requires you to make a few assumptions, and I don't necessarily know that these assumptions are like written down anywhere. I would love to be in a place. So I should say my vision is that at some point in the future we have a really good vision. So I think that what that looks like is thinking about what the format looks like when it's healthy, thinking about the things that are really important to us in the format. So like what are our bright red lines that if something changes here, then we know that there's a problem. What's the like canary in a coal mine for EDH health, right? Mm-hmm. I would love to put those in a document somewhere. And then so here's what I've got in mind for philosophy structure. This is kind of just something that I've been ruminating on lately. But I would love to start with those things, to say these are the things that are like EDH's immutable qualities. These are the things that can't change about EDH because they are like central to the personality or central to the soul of the format, right? I'm not going to say spirit of the format because I think that phrase is overplayed. Mm-hmm. But those central things. Then I would take that one step further and say, what are our strategies for either improving those things or maintaining those things? So if they're good right now, how do we maintain them? If they're not good right now, how do we get them to a good place? And so I would come up with a list of strategies to do that. And then from those strategies, I would hang off of each one of those the actual physical real world actions that we can take in service of those strategies, which themselves are in service of those philosophical points. So giving you an example, if we were to say one of the things that's central to Commander is like, I don't know, 40 life or something like that, right? It's got to have 40 life. Yeah. We would then say a strategy, it's good right now because you start at 40 life in games. Some things that might pressure that are that paying life into combo cards like Ad Nauseam or Necropotence or even just like fetch lands that are supposed to have a tangible downside don't really in Commander. They're just kind of free. Those would be kind of the pressures or maybe the things that suggest that 40 life isn't a particularly healthy place to be at. And then we would take a look at the things that we're actually doing to maintain that, which are like, should these cards be legal or should they not be legal or should they be modified or should they, all those sorts of things. So this is not a real example, obviously. But you could do that for any number of things. You could say color identity and draw a line down from what do we care about the most about color identity? Is that like creating a personality for the deck or restricting the available cards in your card pool, all those sorts of things. And then drill down and say, how is color identity actually handled in today's game? Is it in a healthy place? What do we do to get it there? So that's kind of my vision for the format. I would love to have that kind of structure where we can take any action that we're doing. We can draw a straight line up through the strategy that we're using to maintain the format. And then what are we actually looking to maintain? And then we can go back and say, did these actions actually accomplish those goals or help us execute those strategies? So that's kind of my vision for the format.
And my last question for this RC interview is, why does Gavin Verhey hate VTubers?
Does he really?
Well, I applied to the design team.
Okay.
And I was rejected. So I was just wondering, why does Gavin hate VTubers?
It's a good question. Have you ever heard? Okay, there's a stand-up comic that does a bit called Pachelbel is Following Me, and it's about Pachelbel's Canon in D, and about how every pop culture song is a remake of Pachelbel's Canon in D.
Oh, I might have heard that somewhere.
And the stand-up comic talks about how Pachelbel made Canon in D particularly boring for cellists because he dated a cellist once and they dissed him really bad. So I have to imagine, if I'm wildly speculating, it's because Gavin dated a VTuber at one point.
Oh, okay.
And they dissed him real bad.
Perhaps at Magic 30 you can ask him.
I will commit to that. I'll get it on camera.
Speaking of Magic 30, did you ever find a pass to get into the command zone?
Okay, so I did find a pass. I do have a pass. It's the I'm going to say this off the top of my head. It might be wrong. I have the Emerald Pass, I believe, which is a weekend pass that gets you some limited swag. It gets you into the event. And I think that's it. So I don't have a pass to get into the command zone. I will not be in there. But I will be. There's a free play area. And if the free play area is full, as I'm hearing it might be fairly early each day, I'll just be sitting on the floor somewhere. So, yeah, which is fine. We can play Commander wherever we want. We'll just go to a Denny's or something and play there, you know?
Yeah. Are you normally a convention goer, or is this kind of a first time?
I would definitely like to be. My first ever Magic event was Vegas 2019. And I have since been to two more. I went to Vegas 2021, and then I went to Richmond, which was in March, something like that. So I've been to 3 Magic events, but right as we got started going to Magic events, Vegas 2021 was in August. And we basically like just dodged the COVID bullet. And then the world shut down. So we probably would have been to a lot more if that didn't happen, but I would definitely love to go to more.
Let's move on to our next segment called Tweedlestorm.
Okay.
This is where we take a deep dive into your Twitter, and you can give some extra insight into your tweets and pictures.
Okay.
Let's take a look at our first tweet. There are some Hyrule glyphs. What's going on with this picture?
Yeah, this was part of me kind of live tweeting my reaction to the Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild sequel trailer. I'm real big into Legend of Zelda. And I've been waiting for this Nintendo Direct for a long time. So when they showed this most recent trailer in September, I was very excited about it. And I'm specifically into Legend of Zelda lore. I watch a lot of... That's like my primary thing that I watch on YouTube is deep dives into Zelda lore and icebergs and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, so this was me just kind of speculating over what this like carving is in the trailer. I think that I've like kind of come around on it. I don't necessarily think that this is accurate, but lots of people think this is the goddess Hylia.
I don't know too much lore about Zelda, but what's your favorite Zelda game?
I'm a really big fan. Again, I'm a boomer. I'm not actually a boomer, but my first Zelda game was Ocarina of Time, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so good. It definitely holds up. I don't care what anybody says. But I've been playing lots of Breath of the Wild lately, and I'm super excited for the sequel.
Let's take a look at the next one. What's going on with this picture?
Yeah, so I've traveled to the States a few times in the past little while. Back in April, I flew down to LA, and that was when I was on Extra Turns, the command zone. And also just visited with Olivia Gobert-Hicks. She's a good friend of mine. So I was staying with her and Brian Kibler in their house in LA. And so when I go down to the States, I like to bring people forbidden Canadian gifts. So this one was in August, right? So that would have been for Labor Day long weekend. This is actually when I was in Portland shooting Shuffle Up and Play. I was gonna bring maple syrup for everybody for Hire from Playing with Power and Cam from Play to Win and Rebel. I was gonna bring them all maple syrup, but I didn't end up checking a bag because checking a bag is kind of a nightmare right now in air travel. So
yeah,
so yeah, I just have them on the bar now in the basement. I have 5 bottles of maple syrup.
Is there a certain maple syrup that's better than all the others?
This one in this picture on the bottom right with the black label, this is bourbon barrel aged, and it's real good. It is exactly as good as you expect it to be. It's very good in cocktails, actually.
Okay. On your Twitter, you have a lot of food pictures.
Do I ever?
I chose this one. If you could talk a little bit about what kind of things you like to make and what's going on with this one.
Yeah, I'm kind of just a big fan of food. I really like eating. A lot of people kind of ask me every once in a while. They're like, "Hey, when are you going to do food content?" Or like, "You should be a chef," or something like that. And I'm like, "No, I don't like cooking. I don't cook food because I like cooking. I cook food because I like eating." And if you don't cook and you like eating, it tends to be very expensive and very fattening. So, I would say like my favorite things to cook are things that are really... I read this book a little while ago called Blood, Bones, and Butter It's by a chef from New York.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she talks about in the book is that she likes cooking things that you fantasize about when you're starving. And that has always like really stuck with me. I love food like that, like beef stew, or like a good bowl of chili with cheddar cheese on top, or like, you know, white bread with too much butter. Like those are all things where you're just like, oh man, I'm so hungry. I could really go for X, right? That's the stuff that I really like making.
Okay.
This one just happens to be a sushi platter that I made. I learned how to make sushi last year. And it's coming along pretty good.
All right, on to the next one. You alluded to this one a bit before. It's not from your Twitter, but you are tagged in it. Who are these beautiful people, and what kind of celebration are you having?
Yeah, left to right, that's Cam from Play to Win, Rebel, AI, Brian, the professor, Tolarian Community College, and then myself, and then Hire from Play to Win, or from Playing with Power, sorry. Yeah, we all went to Portland over Labor Day long weekend. That's first weekend of September. And I'm pretty sure that this episode is it's releasing on Monday.
Yes.
This coming Monday. So we're really hyped about that. I think this is probably maybe the highest profile game of CDH ever. You know, there have been some stream tournament games and stuff like that, but I don't think any of them have come close to the kind of viewership that this is going to get. Prof has like 750,000 subscribers. Yeah, and he's he has been a real big supporter of CDH, like, as long as I've talked to him. Actually, one of the things right at the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, I had a plane ticket to go and talk to him about CDH. Yeah, because he wanted to have me on Untitled podcast. And I wasn't able to make it. I canceled because of COVID last second. I canceled like a week before I was supposed to go down there, because that was when it was really starting to get bad. And I felt terrible about it. He ended up having Ryan from Playing with Power on there, and they talked about it instead. But yeah, he's been a real big supporter of CDH. He loves the playstyle, he loves the community, and he's a real big supporter. So I really hope that the people that watch that game encourage him, because other people in the community look to how that kind of content is received. And if all Brian gets is crappy comments about, you know, CEDH or stuff like that, it's going to make him less likely to want to do it in the future, you know? But if he sees a whole bunch of enthusiastic CDH players saying, this is awesome, I want to see this again, then that's like the message that he takes away. And then like, if somebody else, some other channel that might have 500,000 subscribers sees that and says, wow, if I do CDH content, I might end up with 1,000 or 2,000 people in my comments saying this is great, then it might make them more likely to do it again in the future as well. So yeah, I have high hopes for this. I think the game is great. It's really cool. I think it's a pretty good showcase of what CDH has to offer.
Can you spoil what decks people were using? Was Hire on Kinnan?
No, Hire was playing Turgrid.
Yeah. He plays that too.
Yeah, Cam was playing... Oh, geez. Okay, I know Rebel was playing Thrasios Kodama.
Okay.
I was playing Minsk. And... Cam was playing Ikra Roger.
Yeah, Prof's content is definitely on the top of the mountain that we should all strive for.
New secret layer alert! New secret layer alert!
I look forward to checking it out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was exciting.
Recently, there was quite a bit of discourse about those that were added to the rules committee. Can you talk a little bit about this picture and your thoughts on that?
This is my family. It's so on the very right, that's my mom and dad. Right in front of me in the pink jacket is my grandma. And then on the left side of the picture, my right in the picture, is my Aunt Jen and my Aunt Sharon. And this, I don't know, I took a little bit of heat for this. I think some people maybe misinterpreted what I wanted to say with this, but so there's some complex dynamics here. A lot of people, when they announced the rules committee editions of me and Olivia, wanted to see more, wanted to see people that looked more like a cross section of the community. And I think that's a good thing to go for when you're talking about representative groups. Specifically because representative groups, when they don't look like the groups that they're meant to represent, it's usually an indication that there's some sort of obstacle there for everybody that doesn't like look or act or think like the people that are in the representative group. Now, typically, historically, that's been white men. And there have been obstacles for people who are not white men to end up in those positions. So I know that there were quite a few people in the community that were disappointed that me, being a white man, 35 years old, was added to the Rules Committee. And, I started reading, again, I probably shouldn't have started reading, but it does kind of suck because although I would say, if you were to ask me, like, are you a white guy? I would say, yeah, I am. But my family is kind of not. And it kind of sucks to read a lot of stuff that tends to kind of erase who my family is, because I am really proud of who my family is. On my mom's side, my mom is Ojibwe, and my mom and my grandma and my aunts all live on a reserve in Ontario. They're a member of the Nipissing Ojibwe band in Ontario. And it was really important, especially for my great grandma. So my grandma in this picture, her mother, was involved in teaching Ojibwe language and religion and handicrafts and stuff like that. Like, she received Lifetime Achievement Awards for this stuff. She traveled all across northern Canada, residential school survivor, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's a pretty shameful part of Canada's history, where the federal government abducted Indigenous children. So my great grandma was part of that. She was one of the people that was abducted. And pretty horrific, like, genocidal stuff in Canada's history. And so my great grandmother spent the last 50 years of her life trying to sort of rebuild a lot of what was lost culturally. And it's really important for her that my aunts and my mom and me and my cousins all sort of try and keep that going. And so it's kind of a weird line to tread, because, like, would I call myself Ojibwe? I don't identify as Ojibwe. I identify as a white guy. And my dad is French and Irish. He's about as white as you can get. So, like, I had a middle-class white upbringing and all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to claim that I was discriminated against or that that's my struggle, because it really isn't. But, the reality of it is my mom is Ojibwe. So anyway, that's why I wrote here, don't use this as a refutation for calls for diversity on the Rules Committee, because I think that it is an admirable goal to have the Rules Committee look like the community that it's representing. I think that makes sure that, like, the reason why I want it to be diverse is that if it's not diverse, it's an indication that we're not finding the best people. We're just kind of stopping at our circles of knowledge or our circles of influence, our kind of Twitter spheres kind of thing. I want to make sure that we're actually looking at all these different communities of people that are maybe a little less like us in a bunch of different ways, and making sure that we are actually finding the best people to run the format.
If you're looking for some more insights from Sheldon on that topic, you can check out the professor's video over on his channel.
Yeah, I mean, when new Rules Committee seats open up, and they will open up, I mean, it's a when, not an if. I'm not saying that they'll expand past where we're at right now, but at some point in the future, something's got to give, it's going to be a priority for me, at least. And I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but I'm not the only one.
And this is our last one in the Storm Trigger. Can you tell us what this one's all about and what's going on with it?
Yeah, this is an event that's coming up November 11th to 13th in Salt Lake City. This is run by Kingdoms TV, another YouTube channel. They're running this along with a few other people. It looks like it's going to be a sweet event. I'm going. So again, I'm paying my own way to this. This is. I'm not going to get a whole lot into the compensation of creators for this one, but I heard about that. As of today, I'm not being compensated to go to this event. So this is all on my own ticket, but that's how you know that when I say that the event is going to be sweet, I actually do think it's going to be really sweet. I'm not being paid to say that. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. The thing that I think that they're doing exceptionally well is leveraging the personalities and content creators that are going as part of the event. I've been to events like Richmond, SCG Richmond, where they didn't really do a good job of that. They we were just like, they gave me a pass for the weekend, and then I just kind of played Commander in the command zone all weekend. And that was it. There was no meet and greets. There was no panels. There was no, it was just kind of like show up, play Commander for 2 days and then leave. This one, I think they're doing a really good job. One of the things that you can do, they're doing a charity event where you can win slots at a table to draft Brandon Sanderson's cube with John Finkel, LSV, and Reed Duke.
Nice.
Which I think is really cool. It's a great way to raise money for charity, and they're selling an experience that you can't have at your LGS, right? And I think that that's the key to Magic events going forward. So I have I have high expectations for this event, and I hope they meet them.
It definitely sounds like a lot of big names are going to be there, so if you have the time, I would check it out for sure. And that has been Tweedlestorm. Looks like we are out of time for tonight. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us. Where can the people find you online or elsewhere?
Yeah, thanks for having me. You can find me on Twitter. Mostly, I'm at JimTSF. Or you can reach the Spike Feeders at the Spike Feeders on Twitter as well. We also have every social media platform, Facebook, Instagram. We don't really check those, so don't really interact with us there. Or nobody's going to see it. You can also join our Discord server, the Spike Colony. It's there's a link to it in all of our YouTube videos, and you can find us on YouTube at the Spike Feeders.
Thank you all for watching. Up next, we have a game with Jim and Shauna, and we'll see if they can win MTG Final Feud. So stick around.